What's up, YouTube? I'm Mike, and today I'm back with sort of a cycle/general health update. For those of you who've been following my channel for a while, you know that I had a monumental scare. I got very sick. I'm not going to bore everybody with the details. Most of you who are watching this video probably already know what's been going on. If you haven't, then you can go back on my channel page and see all the videos that I shot from the hospital. I got some illness that is still amazingly undetermined. We still don't know why I ended up in the hospital, but I was very, very ill, and they tried to treat me for whatever illness they thought I had, which they thought was pneumonia, and they gave me a drug called Augmentin that I had a very rare reaction to. I made some very angry videos over this topic when it originally happened. I have since calmed down quite a bit, probably because it didn't end up killing me. But apparently there's like 5 out of every 100,000 people who get prescribed Augmentin have a bizarre reaction to the drug, and it causes what's called drug-induced liver injury. I think this is like an autoimmune response. I'm not entirely certain, or an immune response. Nevertheless, this drug seriously injured my liver. My liver enzymes started climbing rapidly. I started vomiting uncontrollably and ended up back in the hospital, where I diagnosed myself with this illness while the doctors fiddle-fucked around at Baylor Medical Center in Dallas trying to figure out what was wrong with me, running every unimaginably unnecessary test you could run. So despite the fact that I was very unlucky and just happened to get something that, you know, is just a total rare occurrence, they were still basically complete imbeciles in their attempt at tracking down what was actually wrong with me. As the condition progressed, my liver enzymes got massively elevated. The max my ALT got up to was 1,380. I forget, and my AST was 977. My ALP, alkaline phosphatase, got up to 465. There had been talk that this condition could possibly continue to degrade to the point where I would need a fucking full-blown liver transplant. So obviously when you have that situation occur, it is very eye-opening. It makes you take a long, hard look at your life, decide what's important, what's not important. And I decided that steroids were important. Throughout the entire time that my liver was injured, I remained on a minimum of 500 milligrams of Test-C, 400, I think I took 400 milligrams of Masteron E, and I dropped the Deca and the Tren for a very short period of time. Once we had a confirmed diagnosis, I put the Deca back in, and then as my liver started to improve, the enzymes peaked at the numbers I just gave you, 1381 on the ALT and 977 on the AST. Once they started recovering, I put it all back in. So I'm currently running 500 milligrams a week of Test-C, 200 milligrams of Deca, nandrolone, decanoate, 50 milligrams of Trenbolone E, and 400 milligrams of Masteron E. I'm currently taking 12 milligrams of MK677 per day and 50 milligrams of Proviron per day. That is close to what I was on when this entire situation occurred. I'm very happy to report I have not put these numbers in a video publicly yet. The last time I got my blood work checked was about a week ago, maybe a little bit less, and my liver enzymes were massively improved. My ALT was down to 286, which is still way too high, obviously, but it's gotten massively better. My AST is at 92, which is about twice the top end of the reference range. And my ALP is down to 214, which is slightly less than the top end of the reference range. So basically, the long side of this is that I'm not dying, at least of that. My liver is rapidly repairing itself, and there's a very good chance that I am currently sitting here with a fully functioning liver again. It's based on the trajectory of the decline in liver enzymes. my liver should be back fully normal, or basically, within a small margin of error of normal. So obviously that's a really, really great thing that for my wife and my family and I, that I'm not dying of drug-induced liver injury. In the process, however, of going through all of this, because the fact that the doctors didn't put together early on in their attempted diagnosis that it was possibly the fucking hepatotoxic drugs they were giving me that was causing my liver to be all fucked up, they checked every fucking thing you can possibly check. So they checked my heart from multiple different, they did CT scan of my chest cavity, and they did sonograms of basically every major organ with the exception of my left kidney. They got my right kidney, my pancreas, my gallbladder, my fucking liver, all kinds of shit. And basically the short version, which I've not made short in this video, unfortunately, I'm yammering on, is that I've got a clean bill of health. Every single one of my biomarkers has returned to normal with the exception of the liver enzymes that are still improving, my lipids, which will never improve, and my creatinine level is down from where I was in the hospital, but it, again, is always slightly elevated due to the level of musculature that I carry on my body. So what this basically ended up doing to me is it put me in a very different state when I'm in the gym. Up until this happened, I had no idea about the health of my heart, the health of all my internal organs. When they did the CT scan, they looked for blockages in my major arteries, my aorta. And so while not a 100% conclusive workup, I had back in December, thought I had lymphoma, and so I did an entire battery of blood work tests looking for all kinds of cancer markers. So without basically getting a head-to-toe fucking body scan, I've had enough medical work in the last 6-month period to pretty much rule out any kind of cancer or major organ problem. I do not have left ventricular hypertrophy. I do not have basically anything, no coronary artery disease, no chronic kidney disease, no liver disease, aside from the transient liver problem. Basically, I have a completely clean bill of health, despite the fact that I have been blasting gear and running Trenbolone for 2 1-year cycles and pretty much doing everything that conventional wisdom tells you not to do with your body, because supposedly it is so damaging to your health. So up until very recently, every time I would go to the gym and I would be looking in the mirror and appreciating my shoulders and my vascularity and this body that I've built from 140-pound stick man at 5'10" up to 214 pounds at 5'10". At 140, I had 0 visible abs. At 214, I had 6 perfectly visible abs. So not only do I have a better aesthetic at 214 than I did at even 140, but I put on a substantial amount of muscle on my frame in a 3.5 year period. Every time I was looking at my body in the mirror, I would always have the feeling that I was basically paying for this physique with my life. Like that was always the feeling that I had. Like, how can you be running, 1,200 milligrams of gear constantly and not be killing yourself? How could you build all of this muscle? It has to come at some kind of a cost. And I always just assumed that cost was that I was markedly reducing my lifespan. I'm not saying that's not the case, but right now, from all of the medical workups that I've had done, there's no thing that you could point the finger at short of my lipid profile that would indicate that I am doing any lasting harm or that any tangible harm has been done to my body thus far. So that puts me in a weird state of mind when I'm in the gym, because now I'm walking around. Here I am on week 22 of a blast that has basically contained 1,200 milligrams of gear per week for the past 22 weeks, and I don't see any reason to stop. So kind of the point of this video, and it may be in the title, is, am I ever going to cruise again? That's the question I keep asking myself, if and when this is going to happen. My current objective is to get back to the condition that I was in before I got sick. I want to get back to 215, and honestly, I want to see how much further above 215 I can get on the cycle. Now again, common wisdom would tell you that I can't get any bigger because I've been on blast for 21 weeks. So clearly the myostatin must have kicked in and shut down any ability to build muscle. My receptors should be saturated, so any additional compounds shouldn't build any new muscle. This is all of the shit that people tell you in the bodybuilding community, and so far I'm not finding any signs or symptoms of this being true. Admittedly, while clearly a lot of the weight that I've put onto my frame in a short period of time is intracellular water, I was never able to maintain that large body weight for long enough to try to convert any of that into actual contractile tissue due to the fact that I got sick so quickly after reaching that peak height, that peak weight. So my objective is to continue blasting until I get back to that weight minimum, or really what I think that I'm going to do is continue this blast until I stop growing. If I can continue to put on muscle, then obviously myostatin inhibition or myostatin itself is not a limiting factor. Obviously, androgen receptor saturation is not a limiting factor. As long as I continue to build lean tissue, whether it's water, contractile tissue, as long as I can continue to grow and maintain 6 visible abs, then I see no reason at all to pull the plug on this cycle. Clearly, it's not fucking up my health. My blood pressure is in control. Everything in my body is being controlled by the various ancillary drugs that I use, none of which are apparently causing any lasting damage. And so it seems to me that there's absolutely no reason to stop what I'm doing as long as I continue to put on weight. If and when I actually reach a plateau where either the addition of more anabolics or more food does not lead to more growth, then we could start to make an argument that I had either saturated the receptor or myostatin had kicked in, or there was some other limiting factor that I was not going to be able to overcome. Of course, that does bring up the point that I could add YK11 at that point and see if that would spur new growth. So see, the point is I have so many tools in my arsenal that I can continue to add to this cycle if and when growth actually plateaus, that I still can't find a reason or an excuse to come down from where I'm at. This is the first cycle that I have run in 4 years. I have never run a cycle this long in my life. Not even close. Usually by the usually around the 16-week mark, probably the 13-week mark. Generally speaking, I start to just feel very heavy and kind of worn the fuck out. Like I feel like I need a break. Like psychologically, I need a break. Physically, I need a break. Generally, when that happens, it's because I'm using more than 100 milligrams a week of Tren. The Trenbolone in high quantities eventually definitely drags me down. And so, but this time running lower amounts of Tren and higher amounts of other anabolics, namely the Deca, has kept me in a state where, like you probably noticed in the video I made last night, I mean, I was fucking giddy. Like I feel so, this is the best I have felt in a very, very, very long time. This is the best place I've been in psychologically. I mean, I don't want to say ever, but in a really long time. So far, all of my concerns that the Tren was causing my depression have not proven to be true. I have continued to maintain a positive outlook on all of the things that generally drag me down and cause me to go into these existential crises. My relationship with my wife is as good or better than it's ever been. We have never been more committed to each other in the longevity of this marriage and the health of our family than I think that we are right now. She's in a uniquely similar situation where she's found a combination of androgens and ancillaries and ways of controlling her female hormones that seem to be having her firing on all cylinders. So we seem to be in this kind of Goldilocks moment together where we have found a combination of drugs and hormones and ancillaries that are really giving us everything we want in life with, some admitted side effects. My wife is struggling a bit with acne that she's trying to control. My side effects are far less, problematic to me. I think eventually I'm going to lose my hair over this. I'm growing hair rapidly all over my back and the rest of my body, which I don't like. But it's a small price to pay for all that we get from the way that we've chosen to live our lives together. The functionality of our workouts, just everything is basically as good as it's been in a very, very long time. And so when you find something that works, it's really difficult to convince yourself that for like arbitrary bro science reasons you need to change anything. My wife just attempted to do that. She felt like 16 weeks or whatever it was of Primo was long enough, and that she wanted to try to dial back her dose to see if she could maintain the same level of libido and maybe get rid of some of the acne. And she spent like 1 week at the lower dose and went straight back to 20 milligrams of Primo. It drastically negatively affected her libido, and it would have definitely cost her strength in the gym. And I mean, the drug hadn't even remotely bled far out of her system, and she was ready to go right back to the 20 because it was just working. Aside from the acne, it was giving her every single thing that she wanted, and so we're trying some unorthodox methods of reducing the acne. So this is why the point again of this video is that here we are in this unique state where we are blasting, I'm blasting large quantities of hormones. She's blasting enough hormones that it is causing virilizing effects at a rather slow rate. But we have found something that works, and because there are no signs at all of negative health consequences, it just doesn't make sense to fuck with it at all. I am rapidly becoming of the opinion that I am not alone in this, that there are a large quantity of people out there, possibly every professional bodybuilder is blasting large quantities of gear year round. I am really starting to run out of faith that pro bodybuilders are tapering off to low concentrations of hormones for any length of time. I have been trying to work up in my mind what a cruise would even look like. I really do not like going below 500 milligrams of test. I've tried it a couple of times. I couldn't honestly tell you really, the only thing I can really say is I just don't feel the same. I just feel better at 500 milligrams. So, but if I was going to try to craft a cruise, it has to include DECA, because my joints, the joint support I've gotten from 200 milligrams of DECA is basically equivalent to a time machine. There's no way to undervalue what it was like going from, like I explained in my Nandrolone video, like normally rotating my shoulder like this would just cause all kinds of pops and clicks and sticking movements, and like I could just feel the ball in the socket every time I move my shoulder around. And since adding DECA into the mix, it's like I'm 16 years old again. There's just I can't feel the joint at all. It feels totally supported. My elbows have never felt better. My knees have never felt better. My back, I feel the DECA makes me feel substantially younger. I would honestly say the DECA has had a stronger effect on making me feel more youthful than even growth hormone. If I had to choose DECA or growth hormone, it would be DECA 100%, no questions asked. So whatever amount of DECA I require, I'm guessing it's somewhere around 150 milligrams, that has to stay in my cruise indefinitely. So let's say I leave the DECA at 200 milligrams. I run the Tren at 50 milligrams a week. I run test at 200 milligrams a week. So we've got 200 milligrams of test, 200 milligrams of DECA, that's 400 milligrams, 50 milligrams of Tren, 450. I've got to have Masteron in there at some amount. I can't imagine running the Masteron at less than 200 milligrams a week. So suddenly we have a cruise that at minimum looks like 200 milligrams of test, 200 milligrams of DECA, 200 milligrams of Masteron, and 50 milligrams of Tren. So we're cruising at 650 milligrams of total androgens, which is enough to require me to continue to need a blood pressure medicine. It is enough to require me to continue to need to use cabergoline for my prolactin. I might, at 200 milligrams of test and 200 milligrams of Masteron, that might be sufficient to get me off my ADEX dose. At a minimum, I would probably be on half a milligram of ADEX. Of course, lest we forget, I'm going to want to run the Proviron. So the Proviron at 50 milligrams a week throws another 350 milligrams back into the cycle. Now our 650 milligram cycle is pushing a gram. So what is the real advantage to cruising on a gram, or even if we took the Proviron out and we just ran with the injectables? We still have a total androgen load of 650 milligrams per week, which is hammering my lipids, hammering my blood pressure if I don't take a med. It's causing me to use ancillaries in the form of cabergoline and maybe some amount of Arimidex. So I'm not really gaining anything as far as longevity goes. It's hard for me to believe that my body is going to be much more healthy on that than staying at the full blast range. Which again is, so what, let's do the math, 500 milligrams of Test-C, 400 milligrams of Masteron, that's 900 plus 200 milligrams of Tren is 1100 plus, eventually I'm going to be back on Trenbolone at 100, so was that 1200 plus 350, 1,550 milligrams of gear when you keep the Proviron in the mix. So we've got somewhere between 1.5 grams of gear per week to maybe 650 milligrams of gear per week at a minimum. But anytime I throw Proviron back in the mix, even if I cut the Proviron in half, we're back now up close to 900 milligrams of gear. So really, we're talking about a plus minus of going from blasting to cruising of 500 milligrams of gear between the two. And every time I go from blast to cruise, I have to adjust all of my AIs and prolactin doses. I have to feel the come down of all of those hormones leaving my system. I have to restabilize at a new dose, lose strength, potentially lose everything that comes from that higher dose. To do what? Stay there for 3 months, 4 months, before I'm going to go right back up again and then experience adding back in all the ancillaries and all of the come up effects. And, like, what is it seems to me that going up and down like that and changing all of these variables every 3 to 4 months it's got to be more of a it's got to be more straining on the body than letting it just get used to a very high dose of androgens and just stay there so long as it's continuing to produce the results that you want. Now, maybe this is just the drug addict in me justifying what I want to do anyway. But I really honestly don't see the logical difference unless I'm going to come completely off of gear down to a point where my lipid profile returns to normal. I no longer need a blood pressure med. I'm no longer taking like 4 milligrams of fucking Arimidex and 1.5 milligrams of cabergoline, unless I'm going to go down to a dose that's truly going to give any androgen receptors that may or may not be saturated a chance to clean out, unless I'm going to actually let my lipids recover, unless I'm actually going to go down to a dose that is sufficiently low to truly give my body this, I think, mythical rest that everyone's talking about, then what fucking difference does it make? You're just going from a position of really straining your body, supposedly, to slightly less strain on your body. And I think the up and down will negate any benefit from the temporarily lesser amount of strain. Even if you believe that these things are stressing my body somehow, which there is no empirical evidence to show, all of the substantial amount of medical workups seem to show that there is no actual damage being done. I made a video recently talking about John, who's been using anabolics for 14 years. He has perfectly good blood work and presumably a perfectly fully functioning body at the age of 59. So we've got examples like this where a person's been blasting and cruising gear for 14 consecutive years and is perfectly healthy. I am perfectly healthy now, running long blasts and short to no periods off. And so it's really starting to look like just bullshit that is being parroted in the community about any necessity for ever coming off of blast. Maybe it has nothing to do with the body. Maybe the reason people quote this shit, maybe the reason coaches talk about this was because until QSC, King Dow Sigma Chemicals, until they made anabolics dirt fucking cheap, I couldn't possibly afford to run gear like this year round. I think that's potentially the elephant in the fucking closet. Is that right? Elephant in the closet? Elephant in the room. Skeleton in the closet? Who's in the fucking closet? I think the elephant in the room is that if you're a coach and you've got a client and you're trying to keep this motherfucker on the hook, telling your client, look, bro, you've got to run a gear and a half of fucking gram. A gear and a half of, a gram and a half of gear year round in order to see the results that you really want. That's going to be a hard pill to swallow for any client. If you're buying gear at $70 a bottle for test, $110 a bottle for trend, $130, $140 a bottle for like primo. These were the prices that I was paying from Pharmacom Labs before I found QSC that cut all of those prices. It's a tenth. What I pay at QSC is a tenth of the price that I was paying before. So I can buy 10 times more gear from QSC than I was able to. That's why I can afford to do this. So it's distinctly possible that this cycle on, cycle off shit has little to nothing to do with people's health and everything to do with the fact that it's cost prohibitive. You know, the coach wants to get, these coaches are, I've had coaches quote me $1,500 a month for coaching, $1,500 a month for a couple of months of coaching. These guys are trying to get paid while half of them honestly are selling anabolics. And the average person cannot afford to buy all the pens and needles and alcohol swabs and all of the shit that goes into this. This would be a massively expensive endeavor without people like QSC. And so I'm rapidly beginning to think that and a number of other things is the real reason that people claim that you can't blast anabolics year round. So there you have it. That's kind of the dilemma I'm in. I can't find any good reason to come off blast. I suspect that I'm going to stay at this dose until I really and truly hit a plateau that I can't break through by adding more anabolics or something like YK11 or something. And if and when that day comes, then I will have to reassess. In the comments, I would love to hear from anybody who is currently or has been blasting greater than a gram of gear for a year straight. Any info that you can get. I'm about to run out of time on this, so I'm going to cut it short. As always, thank you for watching this video, and we'll see you on the next one.